Hi TYB, welcome to the book of Nehemiah. Now we've just done Ezra, so if you are jumping in here, then what we want you to do is jump back to Ezra, because in fact 1 and 2 Chronicles, Ezra and Nehemiah are great to read all together, and Ezra and Nehemiah are actually accounts that were one text. So jump back and have a look at Ezra and then jump in with us with Nehemiah after that. If you are done Ezra, how great is this? Zerubbabel has built the temple again. This is the second temple. First temple was built by Solomon. It was destroyed when they went into exile, and 70 years in exile, and now this second temple is built. And don't you love that once the temple is built, Ezra steps up in chapter 7 and then establishes the word of God, the law of Moses in Jerusalem again. It's such a beautiful, I love the passion and heart that God gives different people. Zerubbabel, we've got King Cyrus who sends them back, Zerubbabel who starts building, and then you've got, is it Joshua, the high priest that builds with him, and then you've got this incredible Ezra, passion for the word of God. Now we're going to kick into Nehemiah, and Nehemiah has a completely different passion. It says in the beginning of Nehemiah, and you're going to read this, when he heard about the temple, the first thing he thought about were the walls. Don't you love that God puts strategic things and strategic passions in our heart for the house of God? And some of us love the word of God. Some of us love worship. I love worship too. Some of us love prayer. Some of us are passionate about admin. Some of us are passionate and creative. We're all gifted in our parts. And that's what Ezra and Nehemiah really encourages me. Now, the book of Ezra and Nehemiah, some believe were authored, both texts, by Ezra. That Ezra and Nehemiah were written by Ezra. Now, some scholars kind of coming away from this view, because Nehemiah, when you read Nehemiah, it is clearly written by Nehemiah. Ezra is clearly written by Ezra, because after chapter 7 he starts first person, I. In Nehemiah, he is first writing in the first person, so I can't sort of account how they some people say that they actually attributed it to Ezra because something happened with Nehemiah later and they couldn't attribute it to him. I don't know. Study it. Amazing. But Nehemiah is in a first person, so we would say Nehemiah wrote this. It is a fantastic book to read. You feel like you are there with the walls being built. Feel like you're there with Nehemiah. He is going to tell you his prayers, he's going to tell you his frustrations, he's going to tell you what he gets angry about, when there's injustice. He is going to share his heart with you. So as you jump into this text, you're going to love it. Highlight different areas of where you hear the heart of Nehemiah. Now, this book is written about 445 to 420 BC. And as I said, we are getting really close to the last, Nehemiah is the last historical account in our Old Testament before we jump into Jesus. And it's just incredible to read that after this book, we don't have an account of what happened other than history itself. To go back and find out what happened in those 400 years is what is called the intertestamental period. These 400 years when, we've got all the prophets prophesying, and then Malachi prophesies the last prophecy. And then we have this account where there's no prophetic words. We don't have what written in our word in the Bible of what happened in that account. And then we have the New Testament. So you are going to love reading one of the last historical accounts in our Bible of what happens to the people of Israel. Now, the purpose of writing this book, the book of Nehemiah, is one of the books of the Bible that really captivate what happened when they were building these walls. I want you to study the gates and the 12 gates. I want you to study and really imagine yourself there, how they fought with one hand and built with the other, and it was like this prayer and action. And we're going to talk about that in the dives. The prayer of what to do, Lord, and seeking God's guidance, but they've got to be action with it. Now, the walls were in fact built in 52 days. How incredible is that? Now, grab a map and have a look at what they're building. And you can see it's got the sheep gate and the dung gate. That's a great name. Well, you'd want to live near there. And then you've got like all these different gates and the walls built around Jerusalem. And these walls were built to protect the temple and protect the remnant. And so I want you to actually visually have a look at these gates and how they're situated. Now, when you have a look at the gates, you're going to hear these gates gates in the New Testament, because these are in fact the gates that, this blows my brain, that Jesus walked through. These are in fact the walls that they're building right now. The temple that they built in Ezra was the very temple that Jesus walked around, that he walked through. You know, the pool of where they got healed in John, in the Gospel of John, the account of the pool, you know, the pool of Shalom, I can't remember the name right now, but that is right near this certain gate, and it says it, I think it's the sheep gate, and these are in fact the things that Jesus interacted with. These very gates is what you are reading, the building of 400 years before he turned up. This is so incredible. So really enjoy that fact. Now, what I want you to focus on, and what we're going to focus on in the first section of this part of this this snapshot, is the opposition. When you study the men who actually opposed Nehemiah, you find that these are not insignificant men in their country or in this community. Can I read this to you? The Tyndale Old Testament commentary says this: Sanballat was either now or later a governor of Samaria. Geshem was the leader of quite a powerful group of Arab communities. Tobiah was probably a governor of Ammon and a member of an influential Jewish family. So these men that came against the building of these walls weren't just insignificant people, but they were significant people of the community. It would have been very hard for Nehemiah to stand up against these men and families of influence in his own community. Now, to finish this snapshot, guys, I want to introduce you to Nehemiah. The first part of this book, when you first jump in, it says, the words of Nehemiah, son of Hakaliah. And it's this incredible text that sounds like a prophetic book from the beginning. It sounds like he's about to prophesy, but we go into this historical account and we have this beautiful account of Nehemiah being a cupbearer to the king and being sent back. Why? Because the king looks at him and says, mate, you're having a bad day. And he says, yeah, I am having a bad day. I've got this heart to do this. And he's like, go and take this and take this and take this, and gives him all this beautiful favor to go back and build these walls. This guy goes from a cupbearer to the governor of Israel, the cupbearer to governor of Judah. It's just this incredible journey of faithfulness. And you read halfway through the story that he goes back. He finishes one part, and then it actually says, and I'll show you, it says, you know, and then I actually went back, and this was the time that I was back with the king. So this beautiful servant-hearted man is called into these different areas. You're going to love this. We'll keep going in the next part, in the next snapshot video. So jump in with us. I'll explain so much more, but have fun starting the book of Nehemiah.